Nobody asked for a motorhome that looks like it was designed to survive a government collapse. And yet here we are. Full transparency up front, what you are looking at is a fictional concept, generated by AI. No manufacturer, no price tag, no delivery date. Just a vision. But the ideas embedded in this design are sophisticated enough that they deserve a serious breakdown. Because this is not the usual motorhome concept. There is no attempt at sleekness here. No aerodynamic optimism. This designer made a deliberate choice to go in the exact opposite direction. And once you understand why, the whole vehicle starts making a different kind of sense. We are going to walk the exterior and decode what that six-wheel stance is actually telling you. Then we are going inside, and based on these proportions, I think what is happening in that living space is going to surprise you. We will get into the powertrain logic, and then I will give you my honest verdict, including the one decision on this vehicle I genuinely cannot get behind. That detail is at the rear. I am saving it. Let's get into it. Let's start at the front, because the front of this concept is doing a lot of heavy lifting. The face is faceted. Hard angles, no softness, no attempt at friendliness. Most luxury motorhomes try to communicate welcome, curved glass, warm lighting positions, approachable proportions. This concept does the opposite. The front face is aggressive by design. Stacked LED light bars across the roof edge. Dual daytime running light clusters sitting low and wide. A front bumper that looks like it was borrowed from military engineering. What does that face say before the vehicle even moves? It says, whatever is on the other side of this journey, I am prepared for it. That is a specific emotional statement. And for a certain buyer, or in this case, a certain design imagination, that statement is everything. Move to the side profile and something interesting happens. The aggression of the front face gives way to something more considered. The roofline is flat and confident. No dramatic slope, no aerodynamic taper. It holds its height all the way to the rear. That is a deliberate choice. And what it tells you is that interior ceiling height was prioritized over drag reduction. The designer chose to live well over travel efficiently. I think that is the right call at this positioning level. The glass-to-body ratio on the side is worth stopping on. Large rectangular windows, evenly spaced, deeply recessed into the bodywork. The recess depth is significant, probably 60 to 80 millimeters based on these proportions. That depth does two things. It creates shadow lines that make the vehicle look more architectural than automotive. And it signals that the glass is protected from debris, from impact, from whatever terrain this thing is pointed at. The body panels themselves are faceted in the same language as the front. Flat planes meeting at deliberate angles. Light moves across this surface differently than it would across a curved panel. Instead of a smooth highlight sweep, you get hard reflections, almost like a cut gemstone. In a dark showroom setting like this render, that effect is dramatic. In direct sunlight on a desert road, it would be extraordinary. Now the wheels, 6 of them. And this is where the concept makes its most unambiguous statement. The 6x6 configuration, 2 front steering axles, dual rear drive axles, is not a styling choice. It is a capability declaration. You do not put 6 wheels on a vehicle for aesthetics. You do it because you intend to go places where 4 wheels are not enough. The tire choice reinforces that. Aggressive off-road tread, tall sidewalls, the kind of rubber that absorbs rock faces and river crossings. The rims themselves are finished in black and gold. That is the one moment where the concept lets its luxury positioning show through the armor. Black spokes, gold center badge, matching the gold brand emblem on the front face. It is a small detail, But it is the detail that tells you this is not a military vehicle cosplaying as a motorhome. It is a luxury vehicle that has decided to dress for the apocalypse. And there is something happening at the rear of this vehicle, a structural decision I genuinely have not seen framed this way before. I am saving it for the verdict. But keep it in the back of your mind as we go inside. Because the exterior has been telling us a story. And now I want to show you what I think that story means for the space you would actually be living in. We do not have interior renders for this concept. So we are going to do what good design analysis actually requires. We are going to read the exterior like a blueprint and reconstruct what is almost certainly happening inside. Think of this as detective work. Start with ceiling height. The roofline sits at what I estimate, using those wool diameters as a scale reference. Each tire looks to be approximately 36 to 38 inches tall, at somewhere between 2.1 and 2.3 meters of total vehicle height. Account for the chassis, the floor structure, the roof liner. You are looking at an interior ceiling height of probably 1.9 to 2.0 meters. That is full stand-up living. Not ducking, not crouching. Standing. Moving. That changes everything about how a space feels. Now the habitable length. From the B-pillar, where the cab ends and the living quarters begin, to the rear of the body, I am estimating approximately 4.5 to 5 meters of usable interior length. That is meaningful space. Not a compromise. A real home. So how does a designer divide 4.5 meters of expedition living space? Here is what I think is almost certainly happening. Immediately behind the cab, you have a transition zone, probably a small entry vestibule with gear storage. Wet boots, jackets, equipment. This is not luxury softness. This is expedition logic. You do not walk mud and grit directly into your living space. Beyond that, the lounge and kitchen zone. This is where the large side windows are doing their most important work. Natural light, outward views, the psychological sense of connection to whatever landscape you have driven into. I think the lounge faces those windows directly, seating position to look out rather than inward. That is the right call. When you have parked this vehicle on the edge of a Namibian salt flat or a Norwegian fjord, the view is the point. The kitchen, I suspect, runs along the opposite wall, allowing the cook to face the lounge rather than face a wall. Induction over gas at this positioning level almost certainly. Concealed appliances. Surface area that does not disappear when you are not using it. Mid-vehicle, roughly above the rear axle cluster, the sleeping quarters. Position relative to the axle is always a compromise in expedition builds. You want weight distribution, but you also want the sleeping zone as far from road noise as possible. My read here is that the designer has accepted a degree of axle proximity in exchange for the sleeping space being fully separated from the lounge by a structural partition. Privacy over silence. I think that is the correct trade. The bathroom will be tight. It always is in a vehicle this width, which looks to be approximately 2.4 to 2.5 meters based on those tire positions. A wet bath is the pragmatic solution here. The shower, toilet, and basin sharing a single waterproof space rather than being divided. Gray water tanks almost certainly mounted below the chassis between the axles, the lowest and most balanced position for liquid weight management. And the cockpit. Look at that windscreen angle and height from the exterior. The driver is sitting high, probably 1.6 to 1.7 meters off the ground at eye level. The windscreen wraps slightly at the edges. Visibility from that seat would be extraordinary. Not just forward, laterally into the terrain alongside you. In a vehicle designed to go places where the path is uncertain, that visibility is not comfort. It is safety. Imagine waking up in the sleeping quarters of something like this. The vehicle is parked. The road noise is gone. The only sound is whatever landscape you chose to stop in. You stand up, fully upright, walk 6 steps to the lounge window, and whatever you see outside fills the entire frame. That is not a camping experience. That is a different category of living entirely. If this were ever engineered for reality, the powertrain conversation starts with one unavoidable question. What do you do with 6 driven wheels and a body this heavy? The honest answer is that full electric, while compelling at this positioning level, is not yet the obvious choice for a genuine expedition 6x6. Battery weight in a vehicle already carrying this much mass creates a load management problem that current battery chemistry has not fully solved. The closest real-world reference point is the heavy EV coach segment vehicles like the zero-emission long-haul trucks currently entering European fleets, where battery packs in the 400 to 600 kilowatt-hour range are achieving 300 to 400 kilometer ranges. For expedition use, where charging infrastructure may not exist, that range ceiling is a genuine constraint. The more interesting near-future solution for a concept like this is a hydrogen fuel cell hybrid. Primary propulsion through electric motors at each driven axle, which is where the 6x6 configuration actually becomes an engineering advantage, because individual axle motor control gives you traction precision that a conventional drivetrain physically cannot match. Range anxiety solved through hydrogen rather than battery capacity. In a real-world build scenario, you would be looking at a 150 to 200 kilowatt fuel cell stack feeding a buffer battery, with a recovery system recapturing energy on descents. The solar roof array visible here would not be a primary power source at this scale. The surface area is insufficient for that. But as an off-grid interior system sustainer running climate, lighting, water heating, connectivity while parked, it is genuinely useful. 3 to 4 days of stationary off-grid comfort from solar alone is achievable with the roof area this concept appears to have. Smart systems in a vehicle like this would center on predictive terrain management, the suspension reading what is coming 20 to 30 meters ahead and preloading the dampers accordingly. Climate learning your preferences across different altitude and temperature profiles. And autonomous highway capability not for off-road use, but to allow long transit legs to happen without driver fatigue accumulating before you reach the terrain that actually demands your attention. Here is my honest take. What this concept does genuinely well is commit. There is no identity confusion here. Every design decision, the faceted panels, the 6x6 stance, the military-grade front face, the recessed glass, is pointing in the same direction. That coherence is rare. Most concept vehicles hedge. This one does not. And in design, commitment reads as confidence. The gold accent work, the rim centers, the bonnet badge, the step lighting, is where I think the concept is at its most interesting. Because it is doing something quite clever. It is using luxury signaling extremely sparingly against an otherwise austere surface. The result is that the gold reads as meaningful rather than decorative. You notice it precisely because everything around it is restrained. That is good design instinct. What seems impractical, and I want to be honest here, is the 6x6 configuration in the context of a luxury living vehicle. 6-wheel drive systems are heavy, mechanically complex, and expensive to engineer. For genuine expedition use, crossing terrain where 4 wheels would fail, the capability is justified. But the design language here, the showroom render, the polished presentation, suggests this concept is imagining an owner who wants to look like they could cross the Sahara more than one who actually will. And for that buyer, the 6x6 adds cost and complexity without proportionate return. A capable 4x4 platform with smart suspension management would serve the actual use case better. The most impressive detail, to me, is the roofline decision. Holding that flat, tall profile all the way to the rear when the design pressure in this segment is always toward an aggressive taper, that took confidence. And it is the decision that would make the interior genuinely livable rather than aesthetically exciting from outside but cramped within. Someone made the right call there. The one thing I would change, and this is specific, is the entry door position and size. From the exterior, the primary entry appears to be a single door mid-vehicle. For a concept at this level, with this much interior ambition, a wider double-door entry with deployable steps would transform the experience of arriving and leaving the vehicle. The entry moment matters. Right now, this concept has not designed that moment. It has designed everything else beautifully and then left the front door as an afterthought. What this concept signals about luxury mobility is something worth sitting with. The direction is clear. The next generation of serious luxury travel is not about softness and smoothness. It is about capability as the ultimate status signal. Not, I can afford comfort, but I can go anywhere and be comfortable there. That is a different value proposition entirely. And AI-generated concepts like this one are mapping that territory before any manufacturer has been brave enough to build it. It is a concept. It is fictional. It is AI-generated. And it is still one of the most resolved expedition motorhome concepts I have analyzed on this channel. Here is the question I want to leave you with: 6x6 capability or extended battery range? If you could only have one for genuine off-grid living, which would you actually choose? Let me know below. The answers are usually more divided than people expect. If this kind of design analysis is what you come to YouTube for, subscribing is genuinely the most efficient way to not miss the next one.